I like to do things differently. Everything I do. Hello, everyone. I don't know why I'm starting this podcast. It kind of just fell into my lap. And it's funny because I've gone through a lot in the past 5 years, which I feel like anyone can say, oh, I've been through a lot. And you don't know if people can relate, if they almost think you're crazy or weird or strange, but also putting things into words never truly explains the full emotional experience of something. And so my journey, I guess, started when I took the leap of faith to go move to New York. And I knew no one, had no job, no place to live. I was just like sick of COVID, going crazy, knew I had to do something different. And I think the moment that you take the risk and do something that scares the absolute shit out of you is when things start to just crumble inside of you, and your programming, your belief system, everything you grew up with, it starts to be questioned. And so now looking back years later, I'm like, oh, this was a journey of finding Abby, which is going to take my whole life. And I know I'm not even anywhere close to probably finding her true form, but I'm so much farther than I was just a few years ago. And I'm so proud of myself for taking that leap of faith, because I've met so many amazing people, gone to amazing places, done things I never would have done. And I think it all comes down to my soul was craving something different than what I grew up with. And this is not to bash my family. My family is amazing, and I'm so thankful for what I grew up with and all the lessons they taught me, the things that, belief systems essentially, that were instilled within me. But I knew deep down it just wasn't quite it. I wasn't hitting the mark. Abby was still not herself, and she wasn't able to be fully expressed. And so I was trying to find a way to find her, to get back to her. Now that I've gone through all these years of meeting people with very different ways of thinking and doing and seeing the world, I've realized, okay, so my family was very much, I should back up. My family was very good at pretending everything was okay and amazing and perfect on the surface. And I wanted to be perfect for my parents. They would always joke that I was more mature than them. I was trying to do the best things in life to please them, trying to perform at my highest in every single thing I did, which is something I'm still trying to dismantle to this day. But I've realized it's way more fun to make mistakes and fuck up and do crazy shit that scares you, or that is a little taboo, is not a part of the norm. My biggest challenge that I faced was actually encountering spirits that would enter into my body when I was in New York City, which at that point you go, okay, am I supposed to be in a mental psych ward? Is this something I call 911 for? Am I going crazy? Is this schizophrenia? And it's still something I struggle with a bit, where I tell people, oh yeah, I'm fine with acknowledging this part of me, but it's still something I really struggle with because it's not normal. And I'm constantly trying to find people that can relate to this, right? And at the time, I knew absolutely no one that could, which makes it very isolating. And so when you go through an experience that no one in your immediate circle can relate to, again, you question yourself and you go, what am I supposed to do? And so I kept asking and asking people. I couldn't find anyone. And finally, I actually asked God. I was sent someone from my past who had connections to psychic mediums who helped me. And to this day, I have experienced many episodes of psychosis, of not knowing if something is real or not, having dreams that felt real, waking up without knowing if I'm still in a dream. And all of these experiences have really made me question all these, I guess reality in general, right? You go, what is real? What is true? Who am I? I figured out that each time I do something that really pushes me or scares me, for example, maybe it's riding a motorcycle, maybe it's going and dating someone that has been in and out of rehab, quitting my job and going to walk El Camino de Santiago, even though I'm supposed to have healthcare and coverage, and working the 9-to-5 typical job, or traveling when I didn't have money, or talking to people that I normally wouldn't because they were probably not the best for me. And every situation where I told myself I was in a good spot or I was in a healthy place, then I questioned, and my mind starts going. And that's the biggest part. That's been the biggest struggle for me, is my brain. So when it comes to finding yourself and also battling this thing up here, your brain, which I think is a struggle for me every single day. For example, I woke up this morning and I'm seeing this guy and he hasn't responded to me in maybe 10 hours, if that. And I go, oh my gosh, this means that he's going to break up with me and we're supposed to go on this trip to Florida and it means he doesn't want to go with me and he doesn't like me and all these things. I'm going through everything in my head that basically convinces me that he doesn't want to see me anymore. And a part of me starts to believe it, right? But a part of me has experienced this so many times that I'm able to step back and say, Abby, let's try to calm down. And I've used all of my different strategies, such as reaching out to people that love me and support me. I'll go on a walk, I'll meditate, I'll make a little art, I'll do something positive and uplifting, or I'll actually sit there and feel my sadness and just cry and cry. But it's to the point where this brain has such a chokehold over me that I can't seem to overcome it sometimes. What do you have against me? Like, what is this brain part of me that wants to sabotage Abby and bring me down and destroy my life? Why is it doing that? Why does it do that to everyone, right? Because you feel so alone and as if no one can relate sometimes, actually everyone can relate. And I seriously wonder what our brains are doing to us and why they're so self-sabotaging. And it's, of course, too, you can listen to your heart and your intuition and go, okay, come to the heart. What does it say? And it'll tell me something. But inevitably, every time my brain counteracts that and gives me a whole different story. I've even had this theory lately because I do have voices in my head, which I can say because the first 24 years of my life, I did not have voices in my head. And then suddenly one day there were. And it freaked me out. I didn't know who was talking to me, where they were coming from. It seems like there's all different kinds of personalities they take on. So some of them are very helpful. Some of them are very negative and harmful. Some of them feel like they're aliens talking to me and give me random information. Others will be almost energetic spirits of people I know in my real life. And they'll be sending me messages like, oh, I'm just thinking about you. Or, oh, I'm doing this. Or, oh, you should meet me at this time. So I know when to go meet them. And every once in a while too, it seems like it's me, my voice, that interrupts all this chaos in my head. So deciphering between all of these voices is extremely difficult. And it also, again, has a chokehold over me because I want to listen to them because they seem to have some kind of wisdom or advice or power that I don't have. So I'm giving up my power in a sense to these voices, but I also feel like I'm learning a lot. So is it good or bad? I don't know. And then I'm trying to figure it out. Meanwhile, the chatter in my head is going crazy. And then there's the voices, and then there's my heart, and then there's the voices that convince me my heart is not the best option because in the past, when I've listened to my heart, sometimes it hasn't worked out. But is that true? Because it might be the voices in my head. So there's this constant dialogue and chaos throughout my whole body, and I'm trying to figure out how to just make it peace. Go still. And again, so many tools. And I even heard on a podcast recently, somebody said, you know what your intuition is trying to tell you. You know how to find yourself. You know who you are. And I'm sitting there listening. I don't know if I really do, especially because there's so much of nature versus nurture that you grew up with. Who is really their true self? And how can you even calculate that? So my soul, it feels as if, so I was born and I was super into fashion and girly things, into taking photos and dressing in my mom's pretty silk dresses and dressing my brothers up. But I grew up with all brothers, all male cousins mostly. And most of my mom's family friends had boys too. So I was just surrounded by men. And what do you do when your entire environment is men as a child? You start to take on their tendencies. So of course I'm starting to learn how to do movie quotes and pick up basketball and BB gun wars around the neighborhood and shut off my emotions and be tough and eat huge amounts of food that a girl like me probably should not be eating. And just taking on all these different amazing traits of men, which I love. But is that me? Is that Abby? I think some of them might be, but in reality, not really. But I have still taken some on as part of myself because I do really love them. And I think that's taught me a lot, but it's taken so much work to find my intuition, my flow, how to relax, how to not work 24/7, and how to stop eating when I'm full, or even just how to not be super hyper competitive in things. And I remember growing up, my parents were huge football fans. So my mom was Packers, my dad was Vikings. And I go, oh, I have to make sure I'm a Packer fan just like my mom to support her. And my brothers supported my dad. So there's constantly this huge war in the house every time there was a game on Sundays. And this past year I went, do I even care about football? Do I even like the Packers? Maybe I'm a Vikings fan. And it seems so stupid, but it was actually so profound to me because I realized I don't think I really like the Packers. I want to be a Vikings fan. So I'm trying on this whole role of I'm a Vikings fan, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, it's fun, but actually I just don't think I care about football. I think I enjoy dressing up and the parties and the fun and the excitement of it all. But then sitting there and watching the game, I'm like, next. I could care less. It just takes so much time to dismantle these things that were ingrained into you as a child. And half of it is people pleasing or taking on these codependency roles with your parents. I'm starting to really figure out, yes, you can go back to who am I? That question. And maybe it comes down to who were you between the ages of like 0 and 10? What did you absolutely love? And I'm starting to come back to that where I'm finally, in the past few years, getting really into fashion and clothes and dressing up again. Whereas most of my life, I didn't interact in fashion stuff because it was like, oh, the boys don't care about fashion and it's boring. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll take that on belief. Sure. So now I'm also getting into content creation, which has been an interesting up and down for me. I actually did a college thesis on Instagram and influencers. I basically did this whole month-long research where I pretended to be an influencer. I did all of the things like pretending to go on vacations. I posted every single day. I did tons of photo shoots. I just took on that role, right? And did everything that they would do. And the craziest part is after 3 weeks, I got so sick that I couldn't continue doing it. And for the longest time, I believed, oh, it's because I'm not supposed to be doing that. That's not for me. But then I went and thought, and I am somebody where if you tell me no or something doesn't work out, it makes me want to do it 10 times more. So I keep circling back to this whole influencer thing. And I go, oh, it still piques my interest. I still really want to try that. I've always super been into photography, fashion, and videography. I used to make my brother dress up and do silly little videos in our living room. And so I think reflecting on that, I think what the college paper thesis project was teaching me was I cared way too much about what other people thought of me to the point where it was stopping me dead in my tracks from doing something that I love to do. And the fear of what people think is, of course, something people talk about all the time these days. Like, just don't give a shit, do what you want, nothing matters, you just got to do your thing. And it takes a lot of work to dismantle those belief systems within you because obviously we want to fit in. We want to be loved and cared for and have friends and family and all these people that are cheering for us in our circle. To also put yourself out there online is very vulnerable, right? And you could also take on a different persona. So much of social media is a lie or fabricated or construed in a way where it's not totally seeing the full picture or not someone's true authentic self. They could be totally acting. Or for example, Paris Hilton is one of my idols. And it took me a long time to realize and to learn that most of her persona that she puts out there is just a character. It's probably one little aspect of herself. She's tried so many different things. And I think that's also what inspires me is how willing she is to try things that she maybe isn't the best at. For example, DJing. A lot of amazing, incredibly talented DJs out there. And she decided to go do it, which is so girl boss. And if I can do something that scares me once, such as going to New York a few years ago, it really set me free on this path of I can do anything I want to do and I should do it. And especially if it scares me, I should do it because there's so much more potential there. It feels like if you're just going about life and nothing scares you and you're just going, maybe you have a little opportunity here or there, little bumps, bruises, falls, downs. But when you go about and you do something that is so terrifying and so out there and has so much risk and reward, it feels like it creates this huge leap, and it can create huge ups and downs and all over the place and wacky turns and almost like a insane amusement park. And it's not for some people, I know, but I love that stuff. I love challenging myself, growing, learning, pushing myself, because it inevitably has brought me closer to myself. And I've noticed whenever I meet somebody that's different from me, the reason I love hanging out with them so much is because I do kind of take on their personality or tendency or traits or ways of doing things. And it's not because I'm trying to be just like them. It's more so I want to try on their life and see what parts of it I like. Because how would I know if I don't try? And some people say that's a bad thing because you're not being your true self. But again, I don't think I've found my true self yet. So I'm going to try these different things out, see what I like and see what I don't like. Or maybe some things it's a mix. I go, oh, I love that, but I'm just going to sprinkle it into my life. Or I hate that, but I might do it once a year because why not? Just to affirm that I still don't like it, right? Or maybe one day I'll wake up and I do like it because I've tried fish and sushi, I would say every few months for many, many years, and I never liked it. And then one day I did. I loved it. I didn't know why. Why did it change? I don't know. So to limit yourself with, oh, I'm never going to do that again. I'm never going to try that again. Even though I have such a black and white mindset of when I decide not to drink anymore, I go, okay, I guess I'm not drinking ever again. My whole life, I'm just going to be sober. And then a few months later, inevitably I drink or have a little taste of alcohol and I go, oh yeah, actually, now I'm going to drink all the time. And there's a gray area there. I could drink a little bit here and there. I could go a few months without it. I could maybe go 5 years sober and then one day love it again. There's so much I limit myself to, and it's for what, right? I don't know. Probably to be a certain way or to place these labels on myself, to find myself and to say, oh, this is Abby. She does this, 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 and this all the time. But she's ever evolving. We all are. And who's to say one day, go, oh, today I'm going to actually have brown hair. I'm going to wear super crazy clothes, super extravagant makeup. I'm going to want to be famous. And then the next day, maybe I don't. I'm going to do all the opposite things. Who knows? But I do love extremes. I love experimenting and then kind of merging them in a unique way that fits me the best. And I think that's actually what a lot of artists do in general. And the whole concept of being bipolar is very interesting to me, or even split personalities. Like, for example, I like to dress either all black and neutral colors or super colorful, eye-popping, crazy jewels and glitter colors. And I don't know where this comes from or why it happens. But again, I feel like I'm just exploring these two very extreme sides of myself and slowly merging them, which will probably become Abby one day. And then maybe she'll change again and she'll go, actually, I want to do all browns, even though I don't like brown right now. All in all, I'm on this adventure. I don't know where it's going to go, who I'm going to be. I keep trying to figure it all out, plan it, make sure I'm in control, because it's so fun to be in control, right? But what do I have control over? Not much. And that's why I've developed this kind of unique, well, I don't think it's unique. I like to say everything I do is unique, but it's probably very average. I've developed this relationship with God that I never had. I used to not really believe in the church or Christianity. It never sat with me, never resonated until I found spirituality. And that was like, oh, this is it. This is my path. And I dove so deep into that because it felt like I was actually exploring something that made sense to me and was exploring the root cause, the inner things, all of that. But then I realized I was always so sad and dense and heavy and dark in that space, which is fine and great and I love it. But my theory is Christianity and Christ-like energy is actually a lot more positive, uplifting, and yes, it has the negative connotation of, oh, I'm a church girl, I'm perfect and good all the time, nothing's wrong with me. But if you take on part of that, there's nothing that wrong with it, right? So I think somehow finding a balance between the two is what I'm striving for. It's just hard for me to say, oh, I'm this or I'm that, because I want people to know right away that I'm all of this. And how do I get them to know right away I am this crazy, unique, interesting person that they want to get to know? And if I portray one side of myself right away, oh, what about this other side? If I tell them I'm a psychic medium, well, do they know that actually, like, I grew up Christian and I talk to Jesus all the time, and I understand that tarot kind of could work with the devil. I don't know. Maybe it's not the best for me, but it's just humanity. I think we're just humans, and what we enjoy to explore, we should continue, because if there's that curiosity and that edge, I say go for it. It's caused me a lot of chaos and pain and struggle, but I've learned to love it. And every time I tell an older white lady I'm working with tarot and she goes, get off that, that's working with the devil, I go, I love the devil and she loves me. The devil and I are friends, and I work with the devil sometimes, but it's not in the way you think. And when you have a fear of something, that means you don't probably know much about it. So when you start to explore it and you become comfortable with it, for example, the devil or demons or possession, because I was possessed for a bit and I was getting attacked by demons constantly and hearing all these voices that felt very scary and demonic, or walking into rooms and glass would shatter every time, and animals would get locked in rooms randomly, or people around me would say, Abby, this feels very weird vibes. I don't know what's going on with you. Also, the other thing is I had nightmares of being possessed and being taken over by demons and attacked. So the more I faced this and actually said, okay, we gotta just talk to them, gotta see what's up. And I became familiar with them and learned a lot of them are just lacking love. And maybe they're even trying to mess with me, have a little fun, being a little prankster. And so the more I became friends with them, talked to them and loved them, they weren't so scary and bad. They were pretty sweet, actually. I kind of love them. And I now I say I work with the devils and the angels, and it scares a lot of people. And a lot of people don't understand that, but that's okay, because I do. And I'm comfortable with it. I say that, and I don't even know if I am. Because I still know people are judging me, and I'm judging myself in a way. But I'm going to grow in that comfortability with myself and what I do and who I am. And the more I say it out loud, the more comfortable I get with it. And the more I accept it as my truth, which again could change. But that's who I am right now. And we're going to keep trucking along, exploring, learning, and spreading as much love as possible without forgetting to love myself, who I did not love or take care of for many, many years. So we're in a selfish era, which I've learned when I'm selfish, inevitably other people are then taken care of way better. Everyone knows this, but sometimes it takes years before it just clicks and you go, oh, I get it now. This makes so much sense. I'm going to be really selfish. Yeah, it's fun. It's more fun that way too. I'd recommend it. So we'll see where this goes. I would love to have podcasts where I have guests on and we talk about taboo topics or things where maybe a little risque, or they haven't shared that with the public before, or they have a little secret, because sharing secrets is fun. I think it's very healing and helpful to get it out into the world and to just get things off your chest that you keep in the dark, in the shadows. So we're unleashing the shadows on this show, seeing what happens, what interesting topics come our way. So stay tuned.